It's New Year's Eve, and that means some people will be bringing in 2025 with fireworks. Reminders on what you need to do to have a safe and happy new year. KNEB.TV News starts right now.
From your trusted source for news in western Nebraska and eastern Wyoming, this is KNEB.TV News. Presented by Platte Valley Companies, premier provider of financial services.
Hello, I'm Ryan Murphy. This is KNEB.TV News powered by Platte Valley Companies. Thanks for joining me. And our top story, as everyone gears up to ring in the new year, some may wrap up the year with a bang by using fireworks. Now, Sunday marked the first of 3 days in the region where fireworks were legally being sold. However, fireworks cannot be discharged until 4:30 this afternoon. Scottsville Fire Prevention Officer Chris Perales reminds revelers that this winter has been very dry and there is still plenty of dead, dry vegetation that may catch fire under the right conditions. He says it's important to ensure that you are lighting fireworks away from people, houses, or any flammable material, and always soak any discharged fireworks in a bucket of water before disposing of them in the dumpster. Well, several $1,000s of property damage following a single vehicle accident Sunday evening on Avenue I. Around 6:10 p.m., Scottsbluff first responders were dispatched to a crash just north of Duncan. Captain Lance Kite says 24-year-old Hope Kennedy of Gering was driving a white pickup and failed to negotiate the turn into the parking lot and struck a NPPD electrical box, power pole, and vinyl fence. NPPD had to cut power to the area so that repairs could be made, and the vehicle, which was stuck resting on the box, had to be towed from the scene. Kite says a passenger in the vehicle was treated for minor injuries, and the damage to the utilities were estimated at $2,200. We'll have more news right after this.
Looking for free instead of fees? Platte Valley Bank can help you keep your finances moving forward with no ATM fees. Whether you're headed to the lake, the mountains, or just to the grocery store, you can enjoy the freedom of free ATM access anywhere, anytime. Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
Welcome back. A 49-year-old Bayard man accused of pulling a firearm on people during a heated altercation this summer has pleaded no contest to an amended charge to avoid trial. Jeremy Cadeso was arrested in July after Morrill County deputies arrived at his home and determined he had been in the possession and armed himself with a 12-gauge shotgun. He had been facing 6 felony charges, including possession of a firearm by a prohibited person and terroristic threats, but earlier this month pleaded no contest to a single charge of attempted possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. He'll learn his fate when he's back in Morrill County District Court on February 3rd for sentencing before Judge Andrea Miller. Well, a shattered man who was caught with approximately half a pound of suspected methamphetamine following a brief pursuit east of Hemingford has agreed to the terms of his plea deal to avoid standing trial. 36-year-old Nicholas O'Connor was arrested in April after Wing Drug Task Force investigators saw him throw a vacuum-sealed bag of drugs out of his car. O'Connor was initially charged with felonies including possession of meth, more than 140 grams, tampering with physical evidence, and no drug tax stamp. But earlier this month up in Box Butte County District Court, he pleaded no contest to a Class II felony charge of attempted possession of meth, more than 140 grams, and the remaining counts were dismissed. He faces a prison sentence ranging from 1 to 50 years when he's back in court on February 26th for sentencing by Judge Travis O'Gorman. And a 34-year-old Scottsbluff man has pleaded guilty to a bribery charge after offering a police officer upwards of $40,000 to let him go after being investigated for child enticement. In August, Victor Galindo was investigated after police received reports of him sending flirtatious messages to a 10-year-old girl on Snapchat. Scottsbluff police were dispatched to a home on 11th Avenue for disturbance and made contact with Galindo, who had been beat up by the girl's family members. Following the investigation, he was arrested on charges of enticement, bribery, and false reporting, but earlier this month pleaded no contest to the bribery count, and the remaining charges were dropped. He'll learn his fate when he's back in court on February 11th for sentencing on the Class 4 felony.
Life is crazy. Pain is stressful. How can anybody concentrate with these busy schedules? Now you can. This is Ben Moravec coming to you from Hydrozen, a float therapy business right here in Scottsbluff. I'm here today to let you know we now have memberships for $49 monthly. You can guarantee yourself at least one float per month. You know how floating keeps your muscles relaxed, your joints relieved, and your brain clear to think? Now you can float at a reduced rate each month. Inquire today at hydrozenfloat.com or call us at 308-63-FLOAT. Hydrozen. Unplug and recharge.
I imagined retirement in a place where we could enjoy our golden years, where adventure and friendship are the only items on the schedule. The Garden Homes at Northfield gives us the luxury we planned for and peace of mind when it comes to convenience, safety, and comfort. We never have to stop and think about the day-to-day upkeep. We love to explore abroad, but most importantly in our backyard. So much to do, so much to see. Here at Northfield, we get the protection of life care, incredible tax benefits, and secured rates for aging services. It's peaceful, knowing that if our needs change, we'll be taken care of. And most importantly, that our kids will never have to make any tough decisions. There never seemed to be enough time to do all the things we wanted. Now we get to focus our energy on enjoying what this community has to offer. At the Garden Homes, life is ours again. A place we had dreamed about. A chance to focus on us.
This is KNEB.TV Ag News from the Scottsbluff Body and Paint Ag Desk. Scottsbluff Body and Paint, you're driving home a reputation.
Welcome to another edition of the Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup. I'm Susan Littlefield, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is going to be our last episode of 2024, so a great opportunity to really be able to reflect and focus not on what happened in 24, but really what we need to be thinking about in 2025. As you're going to find out, it is going to be a different kind of year as we move forward. So stick around. More's coming up after this.
It may be small, but this little bean fuels power. It powers a food industry as a source of protein. It's a fuel that powers diesel engines while reducing emissions. It powers a state economy and bottom lines. And it powers the rest of the world as a top Nebraska export. Yeah, it may be small, but we're finding more ways for this little bean to power Nebraska.
And welcome back once again. As you can see, joining us today is going to be Brian Splitt and Jim McCormick. Both are with agmarket.net. And gentlemen, first of all, Merry Christmas and an early Happy New Year to both of you.
Likewise, Susan.
Yeah, likewise to you and your listeners.
So let's talk about, I'm going to ask each of you, and Brian, I'll start with you. What do you think was the biggest in 2024 when it came to market attention?
You know, I think 2024, when we look back at it, will just be really a continuation of the bear market that began in spring of 2022. That was the top of the bull market. It started with lows made during COVID, a lot of strong Chinese buying and a lot of different commodities, a massive round of inflation, and it all culminated with the invasion of Ukraine. And so from that point forward, we really reached a point of high prices, secure high prices. That was the mentality that changed some of the demand structures. And we needed to go down and figure out a low value where end users were willing to step in and buy in a period where production had increased. And that was due to those high prices and also due to additional acres that continue to be planted in South America. So now 2024, we realized what happens when South America has a large crop, specifically for soybeans, and that really elongates the window of Chinese buying of Brazilian soybeans. And we saw that they didn't come in for U.S. beans until about mid-July this year. And typically they would already be in for a few million tons by that point. So that was one of the big takeaways, is really as the Brazilians continue to increase production, how it's changing the Chinese buying habits.
And Jim, what are your thoughts as you look at a reflection of 2024?
Well, a lot of it, a lot of the changes that we've seen, like I said, Brian nailed a lot of it, coming off of the bull market, kind of the trend down. But, when you look at where we're at, look what the US dollar did lately. You've had a heck of a run up in the dollar here at the end of the year. The real question in 2025, is that dollar strength going to continue, or are we going to see reversal back down? The market, there's still a huge debate about it. The other thing we're looking at, Susan, is kind of the change in the Fed. The Fed has been lowering interest rates all in 2024. They did this last cut here just a week and a half ago, and the market's kind of changing psychology now, particularly on the macro front, that the Fed's going to quit being so aggressive lowering interest rates. Instead of 3 or 4 cuts in 2025, we're now down to 2. So I think that will have an impact on the macro picture and maybe where some of this investment money goes as we move into 2025.
And what a last couple of weeks this cattle complex has had. I mean, I don't think anybody saw we be shutting gates on prices of 197 and 305.
It has been pretty amazing. I mean, when you look at where the cattle is, in general, the story's been told forever. We've got an incredibly tight supply. We know we've got some of the smallest herds, some of the 60s, but now we're at levels that, can we get that next level? The charts look a little bit positive, but the reality is, I think, Susan, when you're at these price levels, you got to be very, very cautious if you're a producer out there, if anything that's profitable. We do have a lot of uncertainty coming into 2025. You look at the regional conflicts around the world. Unfortunately, they seem to be expanding, not contracting. And then on top of it, we do have President Trump being sworn in on January 20th, and he has, threatened to impose tariffs, not just on China, but on, our friends to the south, Mexico. We got into Canada. They're threatening retaliatory tariffs. He's also talked some tariffs into Europe. So, depending how this trade situation goes and what kind of tariffs he may enact and then how they may react back, it could have an impact both on the demand for the product as well as the dollar, which will also have an impact on the demand for the product.
Well, let's focus on that. I mean, 2025, you guys said before we started the program today, it was going to be a different kind of year. And Brian, for you, what are you seeing that we need to focus on in this first quarter, and how maybe our marketing program might have to change up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we've seen recently for corn, and a lot of bushels went in the bin, and the bins have done their job. We're substantially higher in the futures than we were when the corn was coming out of the field. We've seen basis improve, and it softened up a little bit recently as nearby futures have hit 450 and producers have sold some cash here. But I think as we transition into 2025, we do have a fund manager in general that is long corn. And I think we have to ask ourselves, how long are they going to get? Traditionally, the record type length is saved for big stories, whether it's a drought somewhere, the invasion of Ukraine, where the world thought we were potentially losing a major world exporter's production. So do we have that type of a story right now, or is this more of a money flow of, hey, we got oversold, we priced in a massive crop, the selling dried up? We think about how much the funds bought and how little the market really went up in that period of time. When you think about short covering to the tune of 600,000 contracts from going from record short to now long, that's a really large amount of contracts to buy. And here we are, maybe 50 cents off of lows. So I think we have to wonder, does the fund manager have a reason to continue to add to that length? Or as we transition to 2025, the focus then shifts towards the new crop balance sheet, how many acres we're going to be planting. It looks like a lot. If we get government payments coming out in late March, that should also help the idea of these acres getting planted. And the problem is we have high input costs right now. So the farmer has to be extremely diligent in protecting profitable levels and still being flexible enough to allow upside down the road if we have some type of a weather issue, because the balance sheet has tightened up quite a bit.
So, Jim, is there any concerns when you look at soybeans? I mean, and we're hearing, ample opportunities coming out of South America, that there might be a bean acre pullback, or at least a thought about that here in the States?
Well, yeah, I think right now we are going to lose some bean acres. I mean, I think we're going to switch back, Susan, to corn. I'm looking for 95 plus million acres of corn. 2 years ago, we did about 94.7 million acres. So, just kind of the rotation should bring you back to corn. But the reality is for 9 out of 10 producers, when they're looking at the balance sheet right now, it's ugly. I mean, that's probably the one big change in 25 to 24 and 23 is, going into the planning in those last couple of years, you were making money. This year, it's, how much money am I not going to lose? Now, the corn crop's obviously more expensive to plant, but the opportunity to get a better shot of breaking even, I think, is in the corn. That's why I think you're going to lose some corn acres to the bean acres to corn. And like Brian mentioned, we now have this new federal aid coming in from the government that's going to come within 90 days. I think that's just going to encourage even more corn acres. And then you say, well, what about supply of beans? With Brazil's crop is as big as it looks like it's going to be. The government's at 169 crop. There's private estimates closer to mid 170s. And there's a few hedge funds out there talking high 170s. So if Brazil's crop ends up being 5 to 10 million metric tons bigger than what the current estimate is, we can easily afford to lose a few more acres of beans to corn. And we're still going to be overly supplied with the beans. The one wild caveat could be South America is Argentina. They are a little bit dry. They're still in their planning phase. It probably, if we lost some beans in Argentina, it's not going to be a big problem in general because of the big Brazilian crop, but it could have an impact on the meal market because Argentina is one of the big exporters of meal in the world.
Brian, you talked about drought a little bit, and I know that Mexico has continued to have some drought issues. Is that an opportunity for us still to maybe get some exports headed their direction, even after the whole, USMCA thing came back with their genetic modified corn that they were worried about?
I think the drought that Mexico had in their previous growing cycle, that is a big reason why we're continuing to see the type of buying from Mexico that we are currently seeing. The type of exports to Mexico in a good crop year for Mexico are not going to look like what we're seeing right now. So this is probably a little bit more demand than we would typically have in a marketing year to Mexico from their drought. Now, I do think bigger picture that they will continue to be a very good customer for U.S. corn. There's a lot of this back and forth politically about the GMOs, but I think it's just not realistic for them to say that they're not going to buy U.S. corn.
So what are you looking forward to as you talk marketing plans, have this discussion with your customers? Jim, I'll start with you. What are you talking about? What are things on their bucket list that they really need to be looking at then beyond that first quarter?
Right now, I think, they've got to get down to know where the break evens are a little bit tighter than they've been. The last couple of years, there's a lot of margin for error, plain and simple. Right now, when you're looking at where the price of beans and corn right now, every penny's going to matter. I think our viewpoint right now at Ag Market is to be relatively aggressive and get this corn moved on the old crop. We've had, like Brian said earlier, we've had a pretty good rebound. But the overall risk of the bean market, we believe, still to the downside of Brazil's crop does come in as anticipated. So, try to get your marketing plan intact, but also you need to keep it a little bit positive, Susan. I mean, the reality is weather will have a determining factor of where we are. We're quite dry coming into this winter season. We'll see where it is. Some of the weather guys we look at are giving a little bit better odds and nor higher that a dryness issue could come in. So I think my response to producers is, be willing to sell profitability, but maybe have to spend a little bit of money to reown it into the summertime because the what if could change dramatically if the weather does break the wrong way.
If only we had a crystal ball that would give us a little bit of inkling as to how things would go. Brian, for you, as we wrap this up, kind of give us some final thoughts on 24 and into 25 that you wanted to share.
I think there's a specific segment of agricultural production that has a unique opportunity right now, and that's the hog producer. When you think about where we were a year ago, and we were talking about Chinese liquidation of their hog herd, that had values right at the low end as we finished up 2023. So now as we finish up 2024, the fund manager has been record long hog futures. We have the fund manager record short soy meal, and both of those are extremely extended on both ends of it. So I think there's an opportunity right now for the hog producer to really look at downside protection with the fund manager going into a new calendar year holding near record length, very vulnerable to liquidation there. And as Jim had mentioned, there's concerns about hot and dry in Argentina. And with the fund manager record short on soy meal, with soy meal trading last week down to levels where we hadn't seen since the COVID lows, that looks to me like an opportunity to do some user coverage and get meal needs bought.
Jim, any parting thoughts from you?
I think the parting thought is Merry Christmas. Everyone have a good, hope everyone had a good Christmas and have a good New Year. But, be prepared for some volatility. That's the one thing I think with the new administration coming in, we are going to get a lot of volatility in markets. But, have your game plan intact and be ready to execute it when the market's moving your direction.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It has been another edition of the Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup. Information on the show is provided for educational purposes and not intended to influence legislation, government policy, or action. And that, like I said, is another edition. Quick reminder, commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. And that's the Nebraska Soybean Board Weekly Market Roundup.
Are new windows from Renewal by Andersen a great investment? You're darn right they are. Did you know that for less than your cable bill or cell phone bill each month, you could have new windows from Renewal by Andersen right now? Do the math. Renewal by Andersen windows will likely cut your energy bills significantly. They will likely substantially increase the value of your home. They're a great investment. Please contact our team now and ask about our fantastic financing options with approved credit right now. Renewal by Andersen, a great investment? You're darn right.
Better sleep and better health can be found at Western Sleep Medicine in Gering. Since 2006, Western Sleep Medicine has offered the lowest cost sleep testing, either in their independent sleep laboratory or the privacy of your own home. You have control over your health care and your out-of-pocket cost. All insurance is accepted for a much lower cost than the regional option. If you need a sleep study, ask for Western Sleep Medicine. They've helped thousands of people over the years and want to help you. Western Sleep Medicine. Better sleep, better health.
Let's take a look at your community calendar, brought to you by Riverstone Bank. The community calendar is brought to you by Riverstone Bank. We're local and we love our community.
Welcome to Kelly's Liquor, your liquor cabinet. Whether you're a wine enthusiast, a whiskey sommelier, a tequila connoisseur, or you just love your beer, Kelly's has the best selection of what you're looking for. Family owned and operated since 1946 and right on 27th Street in Scottsbluff. Come see us today at Kelly's Liquor, your liquor cabinet. And remember to be a good neighbor. Don't drink and drive. Kelly's Liquor, West 27th Street in Scottsbluff.
Tired of feeling stuck? Not sure if you are on the right track? Platte Valley Bank can help keep your finances moving forward with checking account options to fit your lifestyle and an online account chooser to make finding the right account easy. Control your financial future with helpful budgeting tools and automatic savings plans. Now is the time to enjoy the ride with Platte Valley Bank. You belong here.
And finally, tonight's tax filing season is a ways off, but the AARP Foundation's Tax Aid program in Nebraska is already seeking volunteers on who wants to serve the community. Tax Aid focuses on serving older adults with low to moderate income and helps them secure much-needed tax refunds. Volunteers are trained, and classes are generally held mid-December through January for the upcoming tax filing season. Nebraska's Tax Aid has opened a new site, including one in Alliance, and if you're interested in volunteering, you can visit aarpfoundation.org/taxaidvolunteer. Well, that does it for us this time. Thank you so much for tuning in all this year. Have a safe and happy New Year's, and I'll see you back here at the news desk on Thursday.